What is up, guys? So recently I have been getting my movie buff on, and I just so happened to watch an absolute GOAT movie from 1987 called RoboCop.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
And so in today's video, we are going to be getting the Platinum Trophy for RoboCop Rogue City. It's not often that movies become video games due to the fact that they're complete failures, and I'm looking at you, Iron Man 2. But when I saw that RoboCop was free for the month of April, I instantly added it into my library as several people had told me that it was actually quite fun. Originally released in 2023 by Teon Games, RoboCop Rogue City is very much a typical first-person shooter game with a few little tweaks compared to your regular FPS games. Now, after getting the Platinum Trophy for this game, I would have to say that for the first 5 to 6 hours, this game is pretty fun and actually really enjoyable, but after that, the experience became rather dull and a little bit repetitive and boring, and I just couldn't wait for this Platinum Trophy to be done. So to get the Platinum Trophy for RoboCop Rogue City, we have a total of 28 trophies to collect. It is rated at a 3 out of 10 for difficulty, requires one playthrough, and will take approximately 12 hours to complete. There are no difficulty or collectible related trophies for this entire game, and our journey to get the Platinum Trophy can be divided up into 2 stages. Stage 1 is playing through the story and enjoying the game, and then Stage 2 is cleaning up any trophies we missed with Chapter Select. Now, if you want to be really specific and get it done in the quickest way possible, the guide on PSN Profiles is actually really good, and it has all of the mission-specific trophies and then also all the miscellaneous trophies that you can get in certain areas. So let's get into our Platinum Trophy journey. So the story for RoboCop Rogue City takes place between the movies 2 and 3. It is set in Detroit in 2028 and the city is currently under siege. Gangs rule the streets and corruption rots the system, and corporate power threatens to erase all free will of the citizens. So we begin our story with a news flash of Channel 9 where there is a current hostage situation taking place. The Torchheads, who are a gang that everyone thought was long gone, have stormed the station. They're currently unpredictable, armed, and making demands to the public.
I'm here to tell you that the Torchheads are open for business. You may have heard of us as the #1 supplier of nuke in old Detroit. The most potent, addictive drug available in front of every convenience store, school, or library near you.
Nuke is a designer drug that is currently running rampant in the streets of Detroit and destroying the lives of so many. And on live TV, they inject one of the hostages with nuke and then set the demand that they will happily help anyone out in the city.
Us Torchheads are more than capable of doing whatever you need done in our city. Arson, smuggling, drug dealing, good old-fashioned murder. We do it all. You got the money.
It's only a 3 out of 10.
We've got the power.
Kai, this is RoboCop.
So let's talk.
The broadcast then cuts off, and here is where we get our first look at RoboCop.
Here he is. It's our boy.
And so this begins the very first mission of the game, and here we just have to report to the lieutenant to figure out what the heck is going on. As we approach the lieutenant, it's pretty clear that the police do not have this situation under control, and there are dead bodies everywhere. We approach Lieutenant Robbins, and he tells us that OCP has told the police force to stand down until the SWAT team arrives. We then meet Ann Lewis, RoboCop's partner, and then the Torchheads throw a hostage out of the window, and RoboCop decides to enter into the building.
Hey, you can't go in yet. We need to wait for the reinforcements.
How'd you like it? You also give me a rating, man.
I knew you'd say something like that.
So we enter into the building, and here is where we get to take control of RoboCop for the first time, and after getting my very first kill, I pop my very first trophy of the game.
Really corny.
Anyone expecting a silver freak?
Drop it, scum.
Drop it, scum. Feels like the Terminator game.
It's that metal freak.
Alright, if I shoot him... Yeah, there we go. Zip this up.
Now, if you're following along with the guide, you will be recommended to get 3 trophies here in the first mission of the game. The first one that we earned is Zip This Up, and that is for killing an enemy by shooting them in a sensitive spot. And then the next two trophies are Strikeout, which is for eliminating an enemy using a throwable object, and then Nuke 'em for killing 3 enemies with 1 explosive object. These are really easy to get done here in the first main mission, however if you do miss them, it really is not that big of a deal and you can get it done throughout any of the other missions in the rest of the game. So we made our way through the first floor of enemies and then arrived here at the elevators to find that they are completely switched off and then the stairs themselves are also sabotaged. Lewis then arrives and tells us that she has stolen a key card and we need to then go downstairs and reactivate the elevators so we can evacuate the hostages. So with the help of Lewis, we begin by going room by room and killing all of the remaining torch heads. The gameplay in RoboCop is actually pretty fun, and I really enjoyed the old school nature of when you ADS that you were still looking alongside the gun and not actually aiming down sights like traditional FPS games. It did take me a little bit of time to get used to, but I honestly felt like this was so refreshing compared to the regular FPS games that I had played recently. And so after clearing out the basement, we finally arrived at the generator and then restored power to the elevators. As the pair make their way up the elevator, a television screen turns on and here we get to meet Soot, leader of the Torchheads. Soot kindly tells the pair that he is no longer going to be upstairs and he is going to be leaving in his helicopter. However, several of the Torchhead members will be staying behind to provide a show for RoboCop and Lewis. The elevator door pings open and together RoboCop and Lewis gradually make their way through all of the Torchheads. And so as I mentioned earlier, as you step out of the elevator, there are plenty of computer screens here to pick up, and if you throw them at one of the enemies, you will pop your Strikeout trophy.
Okay, Strikeout.
And so we then finally arrive at the end of the hallway, and then we breach through the doors into the main room and kill all of the remaining torch heads, and then save the hostages.
I didn't save anyone, did I? They all died. That's my bad.
Lewis decides to stay back and look after the hostages, however RoboCop continues on in order to try and find Soot. And so while you're making your way upstairs, this is where you will first get access to explosive barrels that you can throw at a group of enemies, and I decided to pop the Nuke 'em trophy right here.
Yeah, there we go, Nuke 'em. Cool.
As we begin our final push to the roof, a bomb then explodes, and here something weird begins to happen to RoboCop.
I'm guessing that was like meant to happen.
Darling, could you get the napkins from the cupboard?
We're having some flashback here, are we?
Sure thing, Mom. What do we have?
Now, if you know the story of RoboCop, you will know that he was Alex Murphy before he was injured in the line of duty and then turned into RoboCop. Technically, he should not be able to have any memories or feelings as he is now an AI. However, we begin to glitch and experience memories of when he was a child.
Alex, what do you think about the color of this dress? I'm not sure if I like the pattern.
Clearly, something is malfunctioning here with RoboCop. And so as the flashbacks begin to stop, we then finally arrive at the media room and breach, killing all of the remaining torch heads and saving all except one hostage. One of the torch heads has the hostages at gunpoint and demands that RoboCop call in another helicopter so he can escape like Soot. Instead of killing the torch head, RoboCop begins to glitch and sees his long-lost wife as the hostage. As the situation becomes more tense, the torch head threatens to kill the hostage, however RoboCop fails to act, and luckily for him, Lewis arrives just in time and shoots him in the head. Lewis, visibly shaken, checks in on RoboCop, however notices that one of the hostages has been recording the entire situation on a camcorder. RoboCop then tries to apologise to the hostage, however she is extremely angry and claims that he is now unstable.
Can you see? It's unstable!
And so with the hostages saved, this then completes the first mission of the game and pops us our next trophy.
Yep. Night has just begun.
Anne and RoboCop then return to the precinct, which is the police headquarters in Detroit, to the applause of their fellow officers. However, the camcorder footage that was recorded has been released and the news is currently broadcasting it all over Detroit. We then meet Max Becker, who is the head of the security concepts at OCP. The OCP are the Omni Consumer Products, and they are the group that created RoboCop and have plans to get rid of the Detroit Police Department and make it entirely robotic. Max states that the glitch was not an isolated incident and that there has been a clear pattern in RoboCop's recent behavior and that the old man from OCP wants to fix it.
Time to see what's hiding in that metal head of yours.
We then report downstairs and here the engineers begin to examine our computer systems, and this is where we are introduced to the upgrade and then also the combat rating system in this game. At the end of each mission, you are given a tier rating, with S being the highest, and there is a trophy for getting an S rank. Now this should come rather naturally, as there are a couple of easier missions later on in the game, so don't stress if you don't get this done early on. We were then introduced to the skill aspect of this game, and I decided to follow along with the guide and put my initial points into deduction so that I could increase the rate of my XP earned, so then I would then therefore earn more skill points. The test results all come back negative except for a little bit of some unwanted activity in our hippocampus, and so therefore there is actually nothing wrong with RoboCop. However, Max Becker is extremely skeptical and believes that there must be something wrong with RoboCop. Here we meet Dr. Blanche, who is a police psychologist that specializes in helping people deal with past trauma. Dr. Blanche believes that everyone is so obsessed with RoboCop's mechanical side that his actual human and emotional side has been neglected, and she wants to see if she can help him. As the group is putting RoboCop back together, Reed wants everyone to report upstairs for a major mission brief, and so therefore the psychological evaluation will have to wait until later on. So as we enter into the briefing room, here we meet Sergeant Warren Reed, who tells us that ever since this new guy has come into town, crime has increased exponentially in Detroit. Officer Briggs has currently been undercover in Old Town Detroit and has been missing for the last 24 hours. He has been getting information from an informant, and the informant has also gone missing, however they do not believe that the two cases are connected. And so then Sergeant Reed gives RoboCop the case of finding Officer Briggs. Now RoboCop generally follows a very linear story pattern, however several of the levels are open in the sense that you can walk around and investigate things. Each level has a few side quests that you can complete, however these aren't really directly related to the story and just provide a little bit more depth on the characters. However, if you do decide to skip them, it is completely okay and you are not missing out on anything. There are, however, a few side quests that you do need to get done in order to obtain certain trophies, and I will mention these as we go. So by leaving the precinct, we then completed main mission 2 and then began main mission 3, the search for Soot. At the start of this mission, all we basically have to do is walk around, issue tickets to people who have illegally parked or done illegal things, and then find the whereabouts of Soot.
One parking ticket is all it
Uphold
takes
the
to
law.
improve mindfulness.
Perfect.
Now, after issuing your first ticket, you will pop a trophy, and then from here on out, you can basically just begin your search for Soot. Now, there is one side quest that is tied to a trophy in this mission here, however, I did miss it on my first playthrough and came back and got it on my second go, so we will return here later in the video. Our search leads us to an arcade, and here we meet the arcade owner, who is nothing but pleasant towards us. He doesn't offer us any information about Soot, however, it is very clear after we investigate the arcade that there is something suspicious going on in the basement. A search warrant is issued, however we still do not get access to the basement, and then RoboCop decides to enter by force and we find that the Torchheads are downstairs. The Torchheads put up a little bit of a fight, however they are no match for RoboCop, and then we finally corner the arcade owner in his room. We breach and then kill them all, and here we find the location of Soot. Soot is located at a ghost house, and then if you look at the side of the desk, there is a little button that you can press, and after pressing this, you will pop your next trophy for unlocking the secret room in the arcade.
No stone unturned. Find a secret area in the arcade. Oh, I didn't even know that was there.
Inside the secret room is a whole bunch of resources and bullets, however there is also an OCP skill disc that can be equipped to your pistol in order to give it modifications. This is the first one that we have found in the game, and this pops us our next trophy.
I'd buy that for $1. Find an OCP skill disc. Okay.
So we leave the arcade in search for the ghost house, and after finding the ghost house, we actually locate the police informant tied up. The police informant's name is Pickles, and he tells us that the new guy will be at Soot's concert.
On their turf. The meeting is supposed to take place tonight during Soot's concert.
With the location of Soot now known to be at the old factory, both RoboCop and Lewis set off together in order to apprehend him. It then turns out that the old slaughterhouse is actually a nuke lab that the Torchhead have been using to create their drug.
Oh shit! Pig Thunder Lab! Why can't you give us a fucking break?
After killing all of the Torchheads in the lab, we then arrive at the concert and then a massive shootout occurs. Soot is actually the lead singer of his band, and after seeing RoboCop, he tries to escape and runs away. We follow Soot backstage and then eventually corner him, and then we interrogate him. And this probably has to be one of the most funniest interrogations I have ever done in a video game.
You think that's quite a grip you got there. Is that supposed to scare me? Not a single scratch.
How hard is it, bro? What's he gonna do?
So as you can see, I had absolutely no idea what I was meant to do, and I thought I was supposed to interrogate him, but instead we were meant to intimidate him, so we were just meant to pick everything up and just throw it into the walls behind him to try to stress him out as much as we could.
Hey, that stuff doesn't come cheap. No! That was the only thing in my collection that I didn't steal. I freaking hate you!
After breaking everything in the room, Soot is then going to give us a confession about the new guy. However, he has captured Lewis and is using her radio. We then meet the new guy in the flesh, and it turns out that his name is Wendell Antonowski. He is an ex-OCP operative agent, and somehow he has control over RoboCop's abilities. Wendell then accuses RoboCop of killing his brother in the past, and then shoots Lewis in front of him. RoboCop's system then begins to glitch, and then we wake up in the precinct.
Another fucking
Dead
glitch. What a
or
shit
alive?
show.
After we wake up in the precinct, Max Becker is extremely angry that another glitch has occurred, and this time RoboCop will be the subject of a psych evaluation. Now, these psych evaluations with Dr. Blanche happen quite a lot throughout the game. However, you get to pick whatever dialogue you want, and there is no specific answer that you need to give. All it really does is just provide a little bit more depth into RoboCop's history. However, you can skip all of it if you want to, and you really aren't missing anything in regards to the story. So we complete the evaluation with Dr. Blanche, and then we head over to Engineer Morgan, and here we learn about the PCB chip for the pistol. And then by equipping the chip that we found earlier in the game, we then pop trophy number 9.
All adds up. Equip Auto 9's PCB with any chip. Okay.
So with the PCB chip equipped, we then report to Officer Reed's office, and here Max Becker has assigned a new partner for us. Officer Washington will then be overseeing every single movement that we do and will be reporting back to Max Becker. Max Becker wants to get RoboCop off the streets until his malfunctions have stopped, and so he assigns him to the server room to complete routine maintenance. However, little does he know that there is a computer downstairs that is able to find the location of every single criminal in Detroit. RoboCop finds that the servers have been compromised, and when he searches for Wendell Antonowski, he finds no results of him. And then when looking through the search history of Officer Briggs, he finds that he recently searched for Wendell Antonowski. Officer Briggs also conducted a search on the Street Vultures, which are a motorcycle gang that run rampant through Detroit. So with this newfound information, RoboCop then heads to the sawmill in order to confront the Street Vultures. Surprisingly, we are able to enter in the sawmill and we aren't confronted by any street vultures, and we find a missing police car unit that has blood and bullet holes all through it. So we follow the blood trail leading from the car, and then we are ambushed by a whole heap of street vultures on bikes. Now in this mission, there are 2 missable trophies that you do need to get if you don't want to replay the entire mission. The first one is Live by the Bike, which you can get here, and that is for shooting the gas tank of a moving motorcycle.
There we go. Live by the bike. Shoot the gas tank of a moving motorcycle.
The next one is just collectible related and happens a little bit later on in the mission. However, after beating the ambush and slaughtering all of the street vultures, we come across the leader. The leader tells us that Officer Briggs was brought back here to the sawmill and was in a pretty bad shape. However, they patched him up and then moved him over to the other side of the compound. So in typical RoboCop fashion, we then just head on over to the warehouse and just slaughter a whole heap more street vultures. And this is where I started to find that I was hitting a little bit of a wall with this game. Basically, there would be a whole heap of just boring and sort of terrible dialogue, and then we would just go about killing a whole heap of people, and then we would repeat the process again. There just doesn't feel like there's really any personality to this game, and you just spend your whole time doing the same thing over and over, and from this point onwards, it just became an absolute grind for me. And so as we arrive in the warehouse office, RoboCop finds a tape that shows Wendell Antonowski and the Street Vultures torturing Officer Briggs, and then they take him out to the quarry. Now after exiting the office, you will then get ambushed again by a whole heap of Street Vultures, and then after you kill them, you can then get your next trophy. After defeating all of the enemies, you will then find this train yard out the back of the sawmill, and after you move a few of the trains around, you can then get access to this secret room up above the train.
Good eyes, Murphy. Find a PCB for Auto 9 in the secret area of Steel Mill.
And so after finding that next collectible, we then continued on Officer Briggs' trail and unfortunately found him dead in a freezer. With Officer Briggs' body now found, the entire police force shows up to provide reinforcements for RoboCop. And so then with the help of ED-209, RoboCop enters into the final section of the sawmill in order to kill off the remaining street vultures and then arrest their leader, Spike. The Street Vultures stand absolutely no chance against the might of RoboCop and ED-209, and eventually we find Spike and arrest him. However, shortly after arresting Spike, ED-209 glitches and for some reason begins to attack the police officers and RoboCop.
Situation is under control.
You now have 15 seconds to comply. Stand back.
Bro's glitched.
I'm out of here.
You now have 5 seconds to comply. 4,
I said
3,
everything is under control.
1.
Ed,
I have
stand
now
there.
authorized to use physical force.
Now, this was when I was first introduced to the really annoying side of RoboCop. For some reason, the boss fights take a gazillion years as you just do no damage to any of the bosses. Even though the game was telling me that I was completing critical hit after critical hit, nothing was honestly happening. And then to make the fight just even more boring, if you stand behind this car and don't move, ED literally cannot shoot you.
A few moments later.
If you're keen on 20 seconds to comply.
After defeating ED-209, it becomes apparent that there is clearly something going on with all of the machines in Detroit. Not only is RoboCop glitching, but even the machines that are designed to help the police are also glitching. RoboCop then decides it would be a good time to visit Lewis in hospital, who is currently comatose, and he overhears a conversation between the nurses that some bodies went missing from the hospital the other day. RoboCop then interrogates the security guard and looks at the security footage, and it is very clear that this person is Wendell Antonowski. The bodies that were taken from the morgue all had their brains intact. Any body that did not have its brain intact was left behind, and it is very clear that Wendell Antonowski is trying to produce more RoboCops. From here, we then just return to the precinct and complete our regular evaluation post-mission, and then pop our next trophy for upgrading a skill to its maximum potential.
And that should pop us a trophy. Practice makes perfect.
So the goal of the police force now is to recapture Spike, who escaped while ED-209 was attacking RoboCop. So the whole entire police force is now out to search for the street vultures. However, instead of trying to find them, they are currently robbing the OCP bank. So as we have done for basically the whole game, RoboCop then arrives at the bank in order to stop the heist. So we just make our way through the bank with the help of the SWAT team and kill all of the street vultures, and then eventually arrive here at the vault and save Max Becker and the bank manager. The vault is however empty and all the gold has been stolen, and then RoboCop overhears Spike on the radio saying that the street vultures are in the tunnels.
What the hell is this? Where is all the money?
Tunnels? Back with the money in the next...
RoboCop makes his way through the tunnels and all of the street vultures' resistance and finds their hideout with the plan for the bank heist. Spike has however escaped, and after talking to him on the radio, RoboCop finds out that Wendell Antonowski has betrayed him and the street vultures. So to get back at him, they decided to rob the OCP bank.
Don't mess with the money. Complete the bank heist quest.
So there is a clear rift between the street vultures and Wendell Antonowski, and so the task of the police force and RoboCop is to now find Spike in order to figure out what the heck has gone on. However, before leaving the precinct, Max Becker confronts RoboCop and asks him to search an apartment for him. And then to make matters even more confusing, RoboCop has been asked to meet with the old man himself. So we first meet up with the old man, who states that he is going to improve old Detroit and remove all of the derelict and abandoned buildings and replace them with new. The old man also inquires about the psychological evaluations with Dr. Blanche and says that he has been setting these up to make sure that RoboCop does not have any more glitches. Now, I honestly don't know why this was included in the game, as it just really felt like a space filler, and so I jumped off the edge and just walked my way out of the premises. Our attention then returns to finding Spike, and we find out that all of the torch heads have killed or captured the street vultures and have turned on them. We arrive just in time to save Spike's life, and then he spills the beans on Wendell Antonowski's plans. Wendell was making the street vultures steal the bodies from the morgue and then extract the brains from the bodies. Spike's torture was however being recorded and broadcasted to a receiver that the location of Wendell Antonowski is at. RoboCop manages to track the transmission all the way to the old mall in Detroit. RoboCop arrives at the old mall only to find that the torch heads are everywhere, and then he is struck by a car. The crash glitches RoboCop's system, and then we again experience flashbacks to when he was younger and with his wife. Now, I'm not going to ruin too much of the story, as this is a major turning point, but basically RoboCop comes face to face with himself and then realizes that Wendell Antonowski is taking control of him. As we come to, we then face Wendell Antonowski on the roof of the old mall building, and RoboCop is no longer under the control of him and arrests him.
You have the right to an attorney.
I wanted to help you. Release you from the burden of your past life, of your memories. But you don't want to lose them, right? Now I get it.
Anything you say may be used against you.
In prison and the old man is on his
Book
way
him.
out. Could this day be any
Complete
better?
Ghost from the Past quest.
Jeez.
So with Antonowski now arrested, all that RoboCop has left to do is to figure out who his accomplice is at OCP. The obvious choice appears to be Max Becker, and so RoboCop sets out to find him. RoboCop finds Max Becker at one of the OCP warehouses. However, it is an ambush, and Becker releases his new robots onto him. And yeah, look, let's just say I was getting pretty bored by this point.
I'm honestly at the point now where I'm like, I just want to get this done.
Defiant as usual.
So for this section of the game, all you have to do is just survive 3 waves of robot enemies. Now you can earn the missable trophy, there can only be one, and that is for neutralizing all hostiles in under 10 minutes. Now the time limit is actually pretty feasible, and if you look up on the scoreboard that was just there on the screen, you can see the exact time that you have been going for. If you just so happen to go for longer than 10 minutes, you can easily reset at one of the checkpoints, but you really shouldn't have any issue with this.
There can only be one. All old factory hostiles neutralized in under 10 minutes. Oh my.
And so after destroying all of the robots, RoboCop then storms upstairs into the office and finds Max Becker and the mayor, John Mills. Mills was extremely happy with RoboCop's performance and doesn't even realize that Becker was trying to set him up. RoboCop then tells Max Becker that he has Wendell's confession and that he needs to keep his eye on the remote and be careful with what he does. After returning to the precinct and then performing another evaluation, Becker then storms in and tells all of the police force that they no longer have jobs and his robots are taking over. Now, I believe that this is the last time that you will be in the precinct, so this is where you need to get the shooting range trophies. I would wait till the end of the game when you have the ability to slow down time so that it makes it easier to hit the targets when you are shooting them and then earn the maximum points. You can stack all 3 together and you just have to get a total of 250 or more to pop all 3 trophies.
This guy is really good. Scored 200 points at the shooting range. Dead on. Score 150 points at the shooting range. I'll take that. Super Cop. Scored 250 points at the shooting range.
So in order to stop Max Becker, RoboCop heads to the jail in order to get Wendell Antonowski's confession. If RoboCop can get proof that Becker was working with Antonowski, he can stop Becker from taking over the police force and using his robots to control everyone. As we are questioning Antonowski, a riot breaks out. However, he tells us that the project is called Afterlife and then we have to leave in order to stop the riot. The riot itself was actually a distraction, and whilst there was fighting going on, armed guards stormed the prison and then broke Antonowski out. He regains access to his lighter and then regains control over RoboCop and prevents him from stopping him and escapes.
Let's talk. Complete Wendell's confession quest.
Wendell organises a hit on Lewis and RoboCop returns to the hospital to find that she has somehow managed to survive. Together, the pair then return to the precinct, however they find the police in complete uproar and OCP can no longer be trusted. The police force want to go on strike, but before anything can be done, RoboCop is ordered to complete his evaluation and I finally achieved A rank, popping my next trophy.
Oh, damn, we didn't find that note. Oh my god, we got an A, yes. Officer of the Month.
After the evaluation, RoboCop gets a call from Dr. Blanche, who says that she has been storing all of RoboCop's data from their evaluations on paper at her apartment. She is however being followed by OCP and is currently in hiding and wants RoboCop to retrieve all of her data. We then return to Reed's office and here it becomes apparent that Max Becker is no longer a suspect and they believe that it is the old man. RoboCop then arrives at Dr. Blanche's apartment and here he manages to track the location of where her data was stolen to. However, as he is about to leave, Wendell Antonowski's men roll in and set the apartment on fire.
Mission comes first.
So with reinforcements on the floor below, we just escort Dr. Blanche outside and as you're around halfway through this level, you can open up the door on the 3rd floor and save this cat, which will pop you your next missable trophy.
Found it. Woohoo, a real hero. Nice.
We successfully save Dr. Blanche and then Lewis takes her to the precinct in order to keep her safe. RoboCop, however, stays behind in order to track the signal and find the location of where Dr. Blanche's data was stolen to.
What now,
I
Murphy?
will follow the signal to track
One of the shorter
doctor's
Assassin's Creed.
computer.
It is very short. It's actually really good. I need to do
You
it.
will keep her safe.
The signal leads RoboCop into the sewers and here we find all of Antonowski's mercenaries. Now in the early stages of investigating the sewers, you will be targeted by these remote turrets. If you just run past them and go to the computer that is sitting alongside them, you can hack the computer and then earn your next trophy.
There we go. May be used against you.
As we reach the end of the sewers, we find that Wendell Antonowski is actually on OCP's payroll and the old man himself signed his contract. And so by putting 2 and 2 together, it is very clear that the old man is the OCP person on the inside that has been supplying Antonowski with money and supplies. RoboCop then heads to OCP in order to confront the old man himself as there is an Afterlife expo that is occurring. The Afterlife project is OCP's answer to death. Due to the success of RoboCop and how he was able to be kept alive after death, OCP plans to roll this out and use it on regular human beings. For some unknown reason, the old man has actually cancelled the presentation and then as we enter into his office, we find Max Becker. It turns out that the old man passed away earlier that morning and Max Becker is now the new head CEO of OCP.
Passed away earlier this morning. We at Channel 9 are deeply saddened by this horrific tragedy. Our condolences go out to the OCP family in these dark times.
Becca says that he is going to put an end to all of the unnecessary spending that the old man himself did, and he is going to shut down his projects Afterlife and Delta City. Becca is also going to fire the entire police force and replace them with the robots now that he is CEO, and wants RoboCop to extend the ARMS Expo. With the funding from the old man now cut, Wendell Antonowski will no longer have any more money coming in. So RoboCop believes that he may try to steal as many weapons as possible at the ARMS Expo.
Cashing out. Complete the man himself quest.
RoboCop then attends the Weapons Expo, and here Max Becker unveils his new robots. However, he has lost the remote and they have all been hacked and then turn on the crowd. After defeating all of the robots, Antonowski then confronts RoboCop and Becker and tells them that he has taken control of all of the robots and will now take control of the entire city. Antonowski manages to glitch RoboCop's entire system and then leaves him hanging to die with his robot army in the background, and then leaves to take over all of Detroit. We wake up in the precinct, however, are still glitching, and RoboCop states that the evaluation chip needs to be removed from his brain in order to get him back to normal. The evaluation chip was allowing Antonowski and OCP to control RoboCop's memories and then give him hallucinations in order to prevent him from stopping their plans. With the police force now fired and on strike, Wendell Antonowski has then taken his robot army and taken over control of the entire city, and now gangs are running riot. Now, the next 30 minutes of the game are basically a space filler, and you just have to go around Detroit completing a few errands in order to stop the gangs from blowing the city up. After you have done this, you then begin to trace Wendell's source of his broadcast back to the exact location. With the chip no longer inserted in RoboCop's brain, Wendell can no longer control him and then runs away when he realizes that RoboCop cannot be stopped.
RoboCop?
Smoking kills.
So, you finally took care of that, huh? We'll just have to do this the old-fashioned way.
This is a long mission? Oh,
Gentlemen,
no.
I'll leave you to your work.
RoboCop finally corners Wendell, and then the mercenaries turn on him and leave him. Antonowski then tries to use his robots, however his arm is shot off.
Oh my god, what the... I did not expect that.
There is trouble.
Now there is trouble.
This isn't over!
Huh?
Antonowski can only run so far, and as he attempts to shoot RoboCop, we then shoot him and kill him.
He's out of here. Who's it gonna be? Not arresting you anymore.
With Antonowski dead and the robots now stopped, the city returns to somewhat normality. However, an unidentified creature enters the OCP headquarters and begins to attack everyone. We rush over to the headquarters and find the old man has turned himself into a robot and is going to kill Max Becker.
Number one guy, there seems to be a misunderstanding.
RoboCop, I wanted to leave you a message before I undergo this procedure. It has been a long and laborious process, but it has given me the opportunity to observe you closely.
So the data chip that was inserted into RoboCop's brain was being used by the old man in order to take data from him and create his own robot. So the fight with the old man is actually really straightforward, as you get access to all of the overpowered weapons in the game, and as long as you dodge all of his heavy attacks, you will be completely fine and should kill him on your first go.
No mercy at all.
And then as the building collapses, out comes RoboCop, and this completes the game.
It is me, Willis. It has always been me.
Nice shooting, son. Okay. We have officially finished the game.
Now I feel like if I had managed to get all of the trophies in one playthrough, this actually would have been a perfect platinum trophy. However, I did miss one side quest in chapter 4, so I reloaded up the chapter and then completed it, popping our very last 2 trophies of the game.
Hard boiled. To serve and protect.
So the Platinum Trophy for RoboCop Rogue City was actually kind of fun, but the novelty for this game definitely wore off after around 3 to 4 hours of playing. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and if you can please leave a like and comment down below to help get this video in the algorithm, and hit subscribe if you haven't. I will see you guys all in the next one.